Part 1. The silence before the storm. There is a feeling that has no name. Walk into a room, and something shifts in the air around. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quiet like a shadow that moves the moment you look toward it. You shake hands with someone, they smile at you, and yet something inside you pulls back. Something ancient and instinctive inside you whispers, "Careful, you cannot explain it, you cannot prove it, you simply feel it." And most people will spend their entire lives dismissing that feeling, calling it paranoia, calling it overthinking, calling it insecurity. It what if it is none of those things? What if the discomfort you feel in certain rooms and certain conversations is not coming from inside you at all? What if it is coming from them? Jealousy is one of the oldest human emotions on this earth. It was written about in ancient texts thousands of years before psychology had a name. Romans feared it, Greeks wrote tragedies about it, religious texts from every corner of the world warn against it, and yet today in the modern world of polished smiles and curated social media, lives we have become dangerously good at pretending it does not exist. We tell ourselves that people are happy for us. We convince ourselves that the tension we feel is imagined. We train ourselves to look away from the signs because acknowledging jealousy feels uncomfortable. It feels accusatory. It feels unkind. But here is the truth that no one talks about loudly enough. Jealousy does not announce itself. It does not arrive wearing dark clothes with a confession on its lips. It arrives wearing your favorite color. It arrives with a warm hue. It arrives with words that almost sound like suppertel Moston, that almost that single word, that hair thin gap between genuine care and veiled resentment. That is what we are here to explore today, because once you learn to see it, you cannot unsee it, and seeing it clearly, not with bitterness, not with paranoia, but with calm awareness, will change the way you move through the world forever. So let us begin at the very beginning. Let us begin with what jealousy actually is before we can recognize it in others. Need to understand what is happening inside the person who carries a jealousy at its root is not about you. It never was. Jealousy is what happens when a person looks at their own life and feels a deep uneasy. Look at where they already look at where they wanted to be, and the gap between those two things creates a wound, and wounds need somewhere to go. They cannot always be directed inward. That would be too painful. So they are directed outward toward the person who seems to have what is missing, toward the person whose life seems to be moving forward, toward the person who got the job found, the relationship pulled, the business lost, the weight found, the confidence again, the recognition that they have been waiting for. And here is the part that makes jealousy so complicated. Jealous person almost never sees themselves clearly. They do not sit in the darkness and think to themselves, "I am jealous of this person." Instead, they rewrite the story in their version of events. You got luck, you had advantages they did not have. The world is unfair, and somehow it was unfair in your favor. They tell themselves this story on repeat until they believe it completely, and once they believe it, every interaction with you becomes filtered through that story, or success becomes evidence that the world has cheated them. Your happiness becomes a reminder of their own unhappiness. Your confidence becomes something that needs to be quietly knocked down, and all of this is invisible to you, because on the surface they are still smiling, still calling themselves your friend, still sitting in the same room, but underneath the surface current is running in a very different direction. Today we are going to pull back the curtain on that hidden current. We are going to look at the signs, patterns, quiet behaviors that jealous people repeat again and again. It because they are evil, but because they are human, and humans in pain do painful things. Some of these signs will feel familiar. Immediate tell you We'll think of a specific persona, specific momenta, specific conversation that suddenly makes more. Sense the other signs will surprise Yuthi, will challenge assumptions. You have carried for years about people you thought you knew, and some of these signs will ask you to look inward too, cause we have all been on both sides of this one, have all felt the sting of jealousy at some point, and we have all been on the receiving end of it too. This is not about judgment, this is about awareness. So take a breath, settle in, and let us begin with the very first sickness sign, so quiet, so easy to miss that most people only recognize it years later when they look back and finally understand why certain people disappear at Sigao. They vanish when you succeed. Picture this: you are going through a difficult chapter of your life. Maybe you lost a job, maybe a relationship ended, maybe you are struggling financially, maybe you are feeling lost, and there is someone in your life who shows up. They call Yuthi, check in on Yuthi, sit with you while you talk through your problems. They listen, they comfort you, and you think to yourself, this person really cares about me. This is real friendship, this is real support, and in that moment you are right. They do care in their own way. They are genuinely present when you are struggling, but then something shifts. Time passes, you work hard, you push through, you grow, and one day something good finally happens. The job comes through, business starts to grow, relationship finds youth goal you worked years toward is suddenly real, and you look around expecting to celebrate with the people who sat beside you in the dark, and you find nothing. Texts become short, calls become fewer. The excitement that was so easy when you were struggling has quietly gone somewhere else. You tell yourself they are busy, you tell yourself life gets in the way, you make excuses for them because the alternative is too uncomfortable to say out loud. Alternative is that they were more comfortable with your pain than your progress. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon for decades. They distinguish between two kinds of envive: kind that motivates, kind that looks at your success and thinks he want that to let me work harder, and the kind that feels threatened in spirit. Threatened. If you are winning, what does that say about them? In the architecture of their internal world, life is a competition they did not agree to enter but cannot stop playing, and when you move ahead, even when your success has nothing to do with them, something inside them interprets it as loss. Our gain becomes their deficiency, and the easiest way to handle that feeling is to put distance between themselves and the source of the discomfort. Is you so they drift not dramatically, they do not leave in a rage, they do not send an angry message, they simply slowly, peaceably, less availably, and you feel it before you can explain it. Warmth that used to come so easily now feels effortful. Conversations that used to flow now feel like work. Something has shifted, and the painful truth is nothing changed in you simply grew. And some people can walk beside you in the valley but cannot stand beside you on the mountain. This is one of the loneliest realizations a person can have, because it means the support you thought you had was conditional. It was tied to your struggle. It was comfortable with your ceiling but not with your sky, and this is important to understand without bitterness. Best, these people are not monsters. They are simply people who have not yet done the internal work of separating their worth from the achievements of those around them. They have not yet learned that your success does not diminish them, but until they learn that your progress will always make them pull back, and the more you grow, the wider the distance will become. The question is not whether to be angry about this, question is whether you will continue to wait for people to celebrate you. Were never capable of celebration in the first place because your energy is too rare and too precious to spend waiting for validation. That will never come from a heart too full of its own wounds to offer it. Sign 2. The disguised insult dressed as a compliment there is a particular kind of sentence that carries two weapons inside eating the surface. It sounds like praise underneath. It is designed to cut you will recognize it when you hear it. You actually did really well on that. Wow, I did not think you had it in you. You look surprisingly good today. That was honestly better than I expected. Not bad for someone with your background. Notice the structured compliment is always followed or preceded by a doubt. The praise always comes wrapped in a reminder of what they believed your limits were. This is called the backhanded compliment, and it is one of the most favored tools of the secretly jealous person. Because it is the perfect crime if you respond with discomfort. If you say that did not feel good, they have the perfect defense ready. Was complimenting you. Are you being so sensitive and suddenly you are the problem? You are the one who cannot accept. Preseo are the one making it uncomfortable. They walk away with their hands clean while you stand there wondering if you imagined the sting you did. Another is what is actually happening beneath the surface of that sentence. When a jealous person sees your achievement, they have two things fighting inside them simultaneously. The first is the part that recognizes your success is wealthy, cannot fully deny it because the evidence is right in front of them. The second is the part that cannot let your success sit without being reduced. Success that stands alone without qualification, which context without a reminder of how unlikely it was is too threatening to their internal story. So they add the qualifier, add the doubt, they frame your achievement as the exception rather than the rule. They remind you in themselves that this was surprising, that this was unexpected, that this was not necessarily the natural outcome of your abilities, but rather a happy accident. And what this does consciously or notice protect their ego. If your success was surprising, it means it might not be repeated. If it was unexpected, it means it does not necessarily reflect your true capability. And if it does not reflect your true capability, then they do not need to fundamentally reassess the story they have been telling themselves about you. The truly fascinating part is that many people who deliver backhanded compliments do not consciously know they are doing it. It comes so naturally from the well of their insecurity that it bypasses rational thought entirely. It is the mouth speaking what the wounded ego needs to say, but whether it is conscious or unconscious, the effect is the samite lands on you like a small stone thrown from a hidden place, too small to justify a full response, just large enough to leave a bruise. Over time, if you receive enough of these, they do their work, quiet light chipping away at your confidence, making you feel that your successes are always slightly less than they should be. The antidote is not anger, it is clarity. When you hear a backhanded compliment, you do not need to call it out loudly. You simply need to see it clearly for what it is, a person handing you their insecurity wrapped in a bound. You have the right to unwrap it, recognize it, set it gently as it, and keep moving. Sign 3. The exhausting competition. You never enter it. You tell them something that made you happy, a small victoria, quiet winsome thing that cost you effort and time, and before you have finished your sentence, they are already talking about something bigger, something better, something they did that outshines what you just shared. You mention running 3 kilometers for the first time. They tell you they used to run marathons. You tell them you got a raise. They immediately talk about a bigger opportunity they are about to close. Share a project you are proud of. The pivot immediately to their own and explain why it is more significant. It feels subtle at first, it feels almost accidental, but it happens every time, every single time, and after a while the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. This is competitive deflection, and it is one of the most exhausting behaviors of the jealous person, Beckows. They have unconsciously turned your life into a scoreboard, and in their version of that scoreboard, the need to be a head nut just equal a heat best. The jealous person is not simply bothered by your success in isolation, they are bothered by what your success implies about the comparison between the two of you. So every time you share something positive, something in them immediately scans the gap. Where does this put them on the imaginary leaderboard? And if the answer is behind you, they reach immediately for something to close that gap, not because they are proud, but because they are afraid that if your achievement stands unchallenged, story they have been telling themselves about who they are will crack. The energy of this is completely different from healthy enthusiasm. A genuinely confident person hears your good news, they receive it, they sit with it, they ask you questions about your experience because they are secure enough in their own. But the person driven by jealousy cannot sit with your good news for long. It makes them uncomfortable in a way they cannot articulate, so they redirect the climb over your moment to get to their own. And what they do not realize, what is quietly heartbreaking about this pattern, is that in trying to protect themselves from feeling small, they consistently rob both of you of genuine connection. You can never truly celebrate together, because every celebration becomes a contest, and every contest creates distance. Distance is the only thing the jealous person builds more reliably than anything else. Sign 4. The quiet relief that rises from your failure. This is one of the most uncomfortable signs to talk about, Bess. It requires looking at something deeply human and deeply dark at the same time. There is a word in the German language, Schadenfreude, means the pleasure taken from the misfortune of another, and while the word sounds foreign, feeling is universal. Have all felt a flicker of it at some point in our lives. That is part of being human. But for the person who carries deep jealousy, it is not a flicker, it is a flame. When things go wrong for ya, watch carefully, watch their body language, watch the quickness of their sympathy, watch whether the concern in their eyes matches the energy in the rest of their face, because sometimes in the very first fraction of a second before they compose themselves, bore the mask of sympathy slides into place. Will see something else, flash of relief, a brief relaxation in the tension that your success had been creating in thema. Micro expression of satisfaction that vanishes so quickly. You wonder if you imagined you did not when you fail or struggle or stumble something in the jealous person. Exhales not because they hate you, but because your difficulty has temporarily closed the gap that was making them feel behind your setback. Restores the internal balance that your success had disturbed. In for a person whose self-worth is tangled up in comparison, that restoration feels like relief. It feels like breathing again after being underwater. They will of course say the right things. They will offer the standard words of comfort. They may even genuinely mean parts of them, but there will be an ease in their presence that was not there before, a warmth that feels slightly too comfortable for the situation, a willingness to engage that was somehow missing when things were going well for you. And that contrast, that difference in their energy between your success and your struggle, that is the tell. A true friend becomes more uncomfortable when you are struggling, not more comfortable. Fair energy drops when yours drops. Their concern is real, and it costs them something. But for the person who has been measuring themselves against your difficulty is rest. Your failure is oxygen, and your stumbling, however briefly, makes them feel like they can finally walk again. This is perhaps the loneliest thing to discover about a person you trusted, but discovering it is far better than remaining blind to it, because the person who secretly celebrates your failures will never truly help you build your successes. Sign 5. The mirror that copies without understanding at first it was flattering you. Noticed they started dressing differently in ways that reminded you of yourself. You noticed they began using phrases you used pursuing interests you had spoken about, making choices that echoed yours in strange and specific ways, and you thought, well, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Then it continued independent, took on a quality that felt less like admiration and more like something unresolved thing that carries the energy of wanting to absorb what you have without acknowledging where it came from. This is one of the most revealing paradoxes of jealousy. Person who secretly resents your success, minimizes your achievements while quietly cheers when you stumble, is often the same person who is most intensely watching how you live, most closely studying how you carry yourself, most actively borrowing from the identity they outwardly claim to diminish. Based jealousy splits a person's own part, resents your own part, admires you, and those two parts cannot comfortably coexist, so the resentment goes to the surface side, becomes the visible part. Criticism, competition, subtle undermining, and the admiration goes undergrounded, becomes the watching, borrowing, slow, quiet imitation of the life they wish was theirs. This is why jealousy is so confusing. To be on the receiving end of the behavior seems contradictory. They say you are not that impressive. They copy your style. They say your success is not remarkable, but they follow your every move. They say they are not interested in what you have, but they are modeling their choices around it. The reason is simple. They do not copy you because they like you. They copy you because they want what you represent, and they have not yet found within themselves the belief that they can build it through their own path, so they trace yours instead, hoping the external shape of your life will unlock the internal feeling they are searching for. It will not, because what you have, what they are trying to reach through imitation, is not in the clothes or the habits or the phrases. It is in the relationship you have with yourself, belief in your own worth, willingness to do the work, courage to become who you actually are. None of that can be copied. It has to be built in. Until they are willing to build it, they will keep circling, copying the surface, while the depth they are searching for stays permanently out of reach. Sign 6. The art of making great things seems small. You worked for something, you built something, you sacrificed something, and it paid off, and you feel the rare and beautiful satisfaction of a thing well done. You share it because that is what humans do, bring our joys to the people around us, looking to share the warmth of the man. With a single sentence, the warmth is extinguished. It is not that impressive. Honsly people do that all the time. You make it sound like such a big deal. It is really not that hard. If you think about it, suddenly the thing you spent months or years create, thing that cost you sleep and doubt and effort, has been reduced to nothing in the length of a breath. This is minimization. It is one of the quietest and most effective weapons in the arsenal of the jealous person. Because it asks almost nothing of them. They do not need to compete. They do not need to imitate. They simply need to make your achievement feel small enough that it stops threatening them. If your success does not count, then they do not need to confront why they have not achieved the same thing. If what you built is easy, then there is no reason to feel unsettled by it. If your victory is ordinary, their life does not have to feel extraordinary. By comparison, it is a defense mechanism operating at the level of pure self-protection. A person who is secure and at peace with their own journey does not need your achievements to be small. They can look at what you built and feel genuinely glad, without any cost to their own sense of worth. But a person whose identity is tied to comparison woes Sense of value rises and falls with the invisible scoreboard in their min cannot afford to let your success stand at full. Height beckons at full. Height, it casts a shadow over the story they need to tell themselves, so they reach for the only tool available thee. Try to shrink the light, not knowing that the only thing their words ever truly reveal is the size of the darkness they are carrying. Inside themselves closing, what to do with what you now know have covered a great deal of ground today way, have walked through the quiet disappearance of people who could not survive your progress, have looked at the compliment that hides a blade inside it, who have felt the exhaustion of a competition you never agreed to enter. We have seen the unsettling relief that rises in certain people when you stumble, have traced the strange and contradictory mirror of imitation fueled by envy, and we have sat with the sting of having your victories quietly made invisible. Now the question becomes, what do you do with all of this? The answer is not anger. The answer is not a long list of people to cut off or confront. Answer one that actually changes your life is awareness, because awareness is the quiet superpower that jealousy cannot survive one. You see these patterns clearly, not through the fog of confusion or self-doubt, but through the calm, clear lens of understanding. Zooming shifts in you stop taking it personal. You stop wondering what you did wrong. You stop shrinking yourself in hopes that smaller will feel less threatening to them. You understand at a deep and settled level that none of this is about you. It is about the wound they are carrying. It is about the unfinished story they are telling themselves about their own worth, and that wound belongs to them, not to your job is not to carry it for them. Your job is not to dim your light so their darkness feels more comfortable. Your job is to keep building, keep growing, keep celebrating your own victories, even when no one in the room joins in, because the right people, ones who are genuinely rooting for youth, ones whose eyes light up when they hear your good news, ones who celebrate without competing and support without condition, shows people exist and they are looking for you too, but they can only find you if you keep moving forward. And moving forward is exactly what the jealous person never wants you to do. So do it anyway, do it quietly, do it steadily, do it with the unshakable knowledge that your growth is not a threat to the world. It is a gift to heightened. No amount of hidden jealousy, however clever, however disguised over long it has been, hiding in the corners of the rooms you walk into, can take that from you unless you let it. So do not let it keep going.